Hi, my name is Selena Seftis. I'm the district manager at the Huntingdon County Conservation District. I'm a 2007 graduate from Juniata College's Environmental Science Department, and I went on to become the watershed specialist at the Conservation District after that. Now as the district manager, I oversee a staff of 5. We have a technician that works with farmers and implements the state's Act 38 nutrient management law. We have technicians that oversee construction projects, and again, we're delegated authority from the state of Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection to issue permits for construction. We also have an entire program dedicated to dirt and gravel and low volume roads because of the pollution potential from all of our small back roads that follow our stream systems. And finally, we have a watershed specialist that helps out with environmental education, abandoned mine drainage sites like we're going to tour today, and a host of other things. So we're here today at the Broadtop coal field to look at an abandoned mine drainage site. This area was coal mined over 100 years ago and still has acidic water as a result. So we're taking a look now at an abandoned mine drainage treatment system. So this is water that's coming out of a deep mine. And we're going to measure the water before it's treated, take a look at the treatment system and the components that are involved in rehabilitating this water, and then also test the water to see how effective our treatment is. We can also take a look at the receiving stream to look at the biological implications. What is the impact of treating this water and why is it important? So the reason this water is so polluted is because of the geology in this area. So 320 million years ago, this was a fern forest which deposited a lot of carbon. Over time, that carbon became compressed and heated and turned into coal. In the mid-1800s, coal was a very profitable industry, and so this area was heavily coal mined. One of the issues with mining that coal is that there's another component with the coal. There's iron pyrite. So in those fern forests 320 million years ago, there was a lot of iron, and there was sulfuric acid from the swamp formation. Okay. So the iron pyrite rock that was formed in association with this coal, it turns out when it's underground, under several layers of geologic strata and topsoil and plant cover, it's relatively harmless. But when massive amounts of earth moving occur to do mining, to build roads, suddenly you have a lot of iron pyrite that's exposed to the elements. It's exposed to water and it's exposed to atmospheric oxygen. And it's very reactive to that. So the iron pyrite reacts with rainwater and oxygen in the air and forms sulfuric acid. The pH of this water coming out of the coal mines is 3.2. So it's highly acidic. It has killed all of the native trout and fish species in the streams. You won't find macroinvertebrates in the stream. The one thing you do find is this slimy green algae, which is an extremophile that is tolerant of those conditions. But other than that, you really don't find aquatic life. And it's extremely detrimental to this area. The Racetown Lake area has a lot of tourism, but in this community you see a lot of blight and you see streams that are just completely devoid of life. Okay, so before we treat a problem, we have to study what's in the water, how much water there is, and so before building any of these treatment systems, there was a local watershed group with a whole team of volunteers that scouted the entire watershed, found all of these mine discharges and sampled them. So what we're going to do today is a little piece of what they did before building these treatment systems, and that is to test the raw water. So how polluted is this water as it comes out of the mine? We'll also go over a little bit of sampling protocols. So here we have a graduated cylinder where we rinse this out 3 times from the raw water coming out of the mine site. I'm also going to rinse our flask, and I did already rinse it twice, so rinse everything 3 times in the water that you're going to sample before you go ahead and sample it. I'm going to measure 100 milliliters and then transfer to the flask. Next, we're going to add indicator. So this is going to color the water to be able to show us the alkalinity. So we're not only measuring the pH of the water, we're also going to measure the alkalinity. So this is a bromo green indicator. This indicator is designed to basically show a pH change whenever we're going to test the alkalinity. The alkalinity in the water is its buffering capacity to a change in pH. So you can have water that is a pH of 7 with no alkalinity, and as soon as you add some acidic water, it's going to become acidic. If you have water that's a pH of 7 but has high alkalinity, you can add acidic water and the pH won't change much. That alkalinity can absorb any acidic water that comes into it. So this indicator is going to show us the pH change visually, so we don't have to keep testing the pH of this water. Bromo green is going to be green in alkaline water, and then we will titrate using a digital titrator and add sulfuric acid until we get a pH change that turns the water bright pink. So remember, this is the raw water that we're sampling. Okay, so I'm going to add the indicator. And the reason that we use a flask for this is that you can just stir it here in the field. Okay, so the indicator has already turned pink without adding any sulfuric acid. So that means that this water already has 0 alkalinity. And that makes sense because the water is highly acidic. It doesn't have any buffering capacity to withstand further acidification. This is the raw water. Our goal for the treated water is to bring the pH higher so that it's not going to kill all of the fish in the receiving stream, and also to give it some alkalinity. By doing that, we can help protect that stream from any future acidic discharges that might come into it. So we've tested this water and we've seen the presence of the acid. If we were to test it in a lab, we would also see the presence of iron, because iron pyrite rock is Fe(S2) solid. So it's iron and sulfur. When it reacts with oxygen and water, it's going to break apart. It's going to form acidic water and molecular or ions of iron. So this water has a lot of iron dissolved in it. The pH is so low that the iron stays dissolved and the water looks clear. As the pH comes up, because the treatment system is working, you can look down there and you can see that there's some rust-colored water. That's the iron starting to come out of solution because our treatment system is working. Okay, so now we're standing on the treatment system itself. The treatment system is made out of limestone rock, and you can see a lot of iron, and that's because whenever that iron sulfite reacts with oxygen and water, it's going to form dissolved ferrous iron. But after it's oxidized, it's going to form ferric iron. That ferric iron can then hydrolyze in water to form ferric hydroxide. So as the pH comes up, that ferric hydroxide can form. That's the basically rust color that you're seeing there. So again, it starts off just dissolved. As the pH comes up, it precipitates out, and you can see that. One of the things that we're seeing on this site, however, is that it's due for maintenance. So you can see a lot of leaf litter on top of the rocks. You can see the algae that was growing, and this slurry of ferric hydroxide. These are all elements that are clogging the limestone bed. So what we want is for this water to flow into the limestone and dissolve it. So here you can see a rock that the edges are smooth, and it's been slowly getting dissolved by this acidic water. However, as that happens, this iron hydroxide precipitates and it coats the rock. So it's going to shield the next batch of acidic water from getting into contact with the limestone. contact time with the limestone is our primary treatment for this. So this armoring, as we call it, as the system works, it actually shuts itself down. Now what happens is this slurry flakes right off. You can see that I can just rub that off and we've got limestone again. So what needs to happen right now for this treatment system, and is actually scheduled for the coming weeks, is to drain the water into a contained area, allow the solids to settle in that area, and bring a bulldozer in here and just stir up all of this limestone rock. So here you can see a piece of limestone that has a lot more jagged edges compared to this one, and even better yet, this one. You can see how jagged it is. It hasn't been in as much contact with limestone, or with the acidic water. So by stirring the limestone up, we're going to remove some of these clogging elements. The water isn't flowing through here like it should because of all of this iron matter and the leaf litter. And so this is something that needs to be done. We're thinking about every 3 years is what we've seen for this system. And the reason that limestone is our treatment is because it's primarily made of calcium carbonate. So this solid limestone rock, which is CaCO3 solid, it gets dissolved by acidic water and it will form neutral water. So that's our first treatment goal, is to bring the pH from 3.2 up to a more neutral pH of between 6 and 8. And our second treatment goal is to add alkalinity. And calcium carbonate is perfect for that because not only does it dissolve the acidic water and make it neutral, but it forms a bicarbonate ion. So that bicarbonate ion can then go back and neutralize another unit of acidity. So simply running this water through a limestone bed accomplishes 2 of our treatment goals. Many people have asked why it is that we use this size limestone, because it's all like fist size or slightly larger. If you're looking at the surface area and how much acidic water it can dissolve, why wouldn't we use really fine limestone? And that is because this is a passive treatment system. So this is designed to work all day, every day, under high flow conditions, low flow conditions. There's no electronic or mechanical elements. It just is designed on the flow of water. And so in order for this rock to last, it was engineered with this size rock to provide that balance of dissolving the calcium carbonate and treating the water. But if you put in just a bunch of pulverized limestone, it would dissolve very quickly and go away. So this treatment system has actually been here for 12 years. About every 3 years, it gets stirred up with a backhoe to again unclog those pore spaces between the rock. We want the water to flow through it and not be clogged by the iron precipitates. So we also don't know the full lifespan of this rock and of this treatment system. Each of these systems is experimental. They have to be designed to the site. They have to be designed for the water chemistry of the raw water that you're treating. And so this one's been here for 12 years. We did replace some of the stone. So in the very beginning of the treatment system, where it's getting the brunt of the acidic water, that limestone had worn down to a smaller size than was desirable. And so the engineer recommended that we replace 1,000 tons of limestone from just the beginning of that treatment system. So maybe the first 20% of the treatment system. All the stone was pulled out and replaced with fresh limestone, and some of it can be incorporated into the other parts of the treatment system, but the very first 20%, since it's taking on the bulk of the acidic water, needed to be replaced. We want to add alkalinity to our treated water is because we look at this as a watershed approach, and there's so many coal mining areas in this watershed that there's more acidic seeps that can pop up. And that's exactly what happened after that treatment system was built. There was another acidic seep that started out of this hillside behind me. And if you look at the water below me, you can see it's bright orange with iron. And that's because there's more acidic water that started coming out of that hillside after the treatment system was built. So we simply piped it over to this drainage ditch, and we're sending it into the pond of treated water. That neutral and alkalized water can then neutralize this influx of acidic water. And it's a really common thing throughout the watershed. There's going to be some small acidic seeps downstream. So our goal is to treat the largest acidic seeps, add as much alkalinity as we can, and then the stream is buffered from those smaller acidic seeps later. Okay, so I'm standing in the secondary treatment for the AMD treatment system. We came from the limestone bed, and this is the water that outlets from it. I just measured the pH at 6.2. So that means that we took that water from a pH of 3.2 to a pH of 6.2. That's within our goal of getting a neutral pH between 6 and 8. The other thing that we've done is we've increased the alkalinity, which we're going to test for now. So again, remembering our field collection methods, we just sampled acidic water with this. So we want to rinse this out with our new sample water 3 times before we collect it. So the purpose of this settling pond, as you can see, it has a lot of white coating on the bottom. That's to settle out the aluminum metals. So when that acidic water was being formed by the iron pyrite, it also flowed through several underground clay layers before popping out as an acidic discharge. In those clay layers, it dissolved aluminum, and this is one of the treatment sites that has a high aluminum content. Not all abandoned mine drainage sites have aluminum, but because of that, that adds to that precipitate load and those precipitating metals that can clog our treatment system. So the limestone bed is designed to flush through this pipe and into this large wetland. It's going to slow the water down. It's going to allow those metal precipitates. So there's iron hydroxide in here as well as the aluminum hydroxide. It's going to allow those precipitates to settle and discharge clean water to the stream. If this aluminum precipitate was allowed to discharge into the stream, it would smother all of the macroinvertebrate habitat, so all those pore spaces between the rocks where aquatic life would live. It would smother them in that way. It's also toxic to fish species, and so it's really important that we capture it here. Okay, so now we're going to test the alkalinity of the water after it comes out of the limestone treatment system to see how much it's working. So again, we have measured 100 milliliters of water. We've rinsed our glassware in the sample that we're collecting, and we're going to transfer to the flask to do the titration. I'm going to add our bromo green indicator. Again, this indicator is designed to show a rapid pH change. It is green in alkaline conditions, and when it experiences a sudden pH shift, it'll turn pink. So that's going to be the endpoint for our titration. This is our digital titrator. If you've done titrations in chemistry class, you have to use, a burette, and you have to make sure to add the acid slowly so you don't go past the endpoint. And this will basically count our acid for us. So the first thing to remember in the field is to 0 this. If you forget to do that, then you have to redo your results, and it does happen to everybody. The other thing is to test. This is the output knob, so you just spin this a little bit and make sure that you do get acid coming out of it. Sometimes these little channels can get clogged, so I always like to test that. Just a little trick to keep you from having to repeat your work. So I'll twist that until I see a little drop. Make sure that it's working. Okay, so now that we've checked our titrator, I'm going to place it in here. We use a flask so that you can mix while you're adding the acid. I am slowly spinning this to add small amounts of sulfuric acid. And the alkalinity that's in this sample is going to correspond to the amount of acid that I add. So once we get a dramatic pH shift, that means we've used up all of the buffering capacity, all of the alkalinity in this sample, and the sample will turn pink because of our indicator. So we'll just keep stirring. It's also handy to hold it in front of a white background. So if you're looking through your sample onto green grass, you might be seeing green where you might have some pink shifts. So hold it in front of something white if you have a clipboard, your data sheet, something like that. And even though it does take a while, it's important to add the sample slowly, because once you add too much, if you add it really fast, you don't know what your reading is. So as you get closer, you might start to see flashes of pink, and that's how you know you get close. If you see how it turned a little bit pink there, that means you want to slow things down. You also want to give it an extra stir. So there it's shifted from the green color to almost a clear or slightly violet color. That means you're extremely close to your endpoint. So you add acid slow and stir continuously. Sometimes if these take a while, it might be difficult to stir continuously. So you might add acid, stop, and stir a little bit. But it's really important towards the endpoint. Okay, so now it's gone to the bright pink color. I'm going to take this out, and I'm also going to give it one last stir just to make sure it doesn't revert back to green or to violet. Make sure we're at the endpoint. There you can see in front of the white paper, this is clearly a pink sample. And our alkalinity reading as taken off of the titrator is 26 parts per million. So basically, after this water gets discharged to the stream, it can buffer 26 parts of acidity that might come in from another acidic discharge. Ideally, our goal for this treatment system is to discharge 70 to 100 parts per million. So again, that is showing that it's time to do maintenance on this system to get the alkalinity production back up. Okay, so now we're standing at a second AMD treatment system. When we talked before about sampling the raw water, the reason for doing that is you want to know what the problem is before you try to treat it. And this site is exactly the reason why. So the first treatment system contained a lot of aluminum and high amounts of acidity, so it needed to have a limestone bed and the settling pond that we just visited. This acidic seep only contains a small amount of iron, is relatively neutral in pH, and so it really doesn't have as many treatment challenges. It's really simple to be able to treat this system, and so rather than adding this water to the other treatment system, adding to the burden that that system has to bear, that system's extremely expensive, it made sense to just channel this water to a small wetland and basically allow the oxidation of the iron. So once that iron is hydrolyzed, it can form ferric hydroxide. By putting it in a wetland, you're going to increase the surface area, allow for that oxygenation to happen, to settle out that ferric hydroxide. And also you're going to slow that water down and allow those precipitates to settle. So right over here is the raw water coming out into this wetland. And you can see right in the very beginning of the wetland, there's some iron settling out. The rest of the wetland is just for more clarity, but the water gets very clear by the time you see it discharging. And so it's just a really good example of showing the need for having different treatment systems, for having to design each system for the chemistry and the geology of the site. So this road follows the stream for 2 miles up into the headwaters, and it was originally built with whatever rock was around. Unfortunately, that stone contained a lot of mine spoil. It contained the same iron pyrite that was causing the abandoned mine discharges, and instead of coming out as acidic seeps, basically the entire road, whenever it would rain, would leach acidic water into the roadside ditches and into the stream. So my boss before me put in an application with EPA to replace this entire 2 miles of roadway with high calcium carbonate limestone. And because they couldn't measure with one pipe and one sample like we just did, they denied the application. So he had to convince EPA that even though we couldn't measure the direct impact of this road, that we'd be able to see a great change because we're replacing 2 miles of acidic rock that's right next to the stream with high calcium carbonate limestone. This limestone rock is a very typical road surface, but it also just happens to discharge slightly alkaline water to the stream every time that it rains. Another thing that we've done is really reduce the erosion on this site. So if you can see, we have a stabilized ditch over to the side. Those large rocks are the head wall of a cross pipe. So when it does rain, it's going to take the water in a stabilized way off of the road and not cause big ruts. If you take a look at this road, you can see it's a really smooth driving surface for a dirt and gravel road, compared to a lot of back roads you might drive on that have a lot of ruts in them. The shape of the road is also a crown shape, so whenever it rains, the water is going to distribute off to the side in a really even manner and not channeled down the road, causing a lot of erosion and then taking all of that sediment directly to the stream. So this is the reason that we are trying to treat all of that mine water. This is Miller Run. This is one of the very few streams in the Broad Top that has naturally reproducing native brook trout. So we have done electrofishing surveys on this stream. Prior to doing all of the abandoned mine drainage treatment, the brook trout were only in the headwaters of the stream. We're now close to the mouth of the stream, and we have found brook trout this far down. So it's really exciting to see the migration of those brook trout to take over new habitats as a result of our water quality work.